Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Nothing Left Unsaid. I'm your host, Abigail, and I'm so excited to be back with you all today. It's been a while since I've recorded a new episode, and it feels like everything in the world has happened, but we're going to break it all down for you today, find out what's going on in politics, what's going on in Arizona, and everything that I've been up to as well. Lately, I have been doing a lot of cooking, a lot of reading. I've even picked up painting a little bit again. I deactivated my personal Instagram, which has been honestly really good for my mental health, but also given me a lot of free time to do the things that I enjoy and spend more time with the people that I care about. So if you're considering taking a social media break, I fully suggest it, even if it's just for a week or two. Really gives you a little reset that I think we could all use right now. It's finally cooling down in Phoenix, which for us means that it's just going to be less than 100 degrees for a few weeks. But the shift that I've felt personally in just having the slightly cooler weather, I'll say, has definitely been noticeable. I drove to breakfast with a friend last week and had my windows down, was feeling the sun on my skin in a way that does not feel like I'm burning in hell, although if you read the news, it might still feel that way. But I'm really looking forward to going to some farmers markets, maybe getting a few hikes in now that it's getting cooler, and would love to know, what's your favorite hiking spot near Phoenix, or what are your favorite activities that you're looking forward to getting to do finally now that it's not 115. First up, in Arizona news, I want to give a big shout out to the Phoenix Mercury and all of the players on the team. They just made it to the WNBA finals, and we are super proud of them in Arizona. They're such a fantastic team. They've got a great fan base here. And while I haven't made it to one of the games this season, I definitely hope that I can hopefully catch one of the finals games, or definitely if not, I'll be making sure to get some tickets for next season. There's a couple of cool shows playing in Phoenix in the next few days that I will not be going to any of them, but would if I had the extra cash right now. Tomorrow, or actually today, a band called Wet Leg is playing at the Arizona Financial Theater, which I really love their music. Pokemon's probably one of my favorite songs. If you are a fan of hardcore or punk, Turnstile will be here next week. I'm actually going to miss that show, which I'm super bummed about, but I am going to be in Denver with my best friend, seeing Young Lean, which is not an artist that I am super familiar with, but my friend is super into, so I'm really excited to just share that experience with her. If anybody has any recommendations on their favorite Young Lean song, I really need to get ready for the show, so send them my way. And then finally, one more show that I definitely won't be going to because I procrastinated buying tickets, which is probably not surprising to anybody who knows me. But Frost Children will be here in a couple of weeks. They are a super fun hyper pop band. I've seen them a couple of times. The energy is really fun. If you like music that sounds a bit like a cacophony, then that is the one for you. Again, they're sold out, but they're playing at the Nile. So anybody who got tickets, I would love to see any videos or pictures from the show. In other music news, it was recently announced that Bad Bunny will be the headliner for the Super Bowl next year. This is really exciting for Bad Bunny fans, and if you are a super sensitive snowflake on the right, you're probably melting down. Unsurprisingly, Trump and Republicans and their cult followers are freaking out because Bad Bunny, they say, is not American, that his songs aren't in English. And Bad Bunny is from Puerto Rico. It is literally just another way for them to spew racism and bigotry without directly saying that the problem is because he's a brown man versus a, white straight country singer. Many might remember that Bad Bunny famously decided not to tour in the US this year as a reaction to Trump and ICE and concerns that ICE would be targeting his performances. Really disappointing to see how accurate Bad Bunny's concerns were, as after the announcement was made about his Super Bowl performance, the Department of Homeland Security announced that ICE will be patrolling outside of the Super Bowl. I mean, talk about a waste of our tax dollars. But at the end of the day, I hope everyone upset about Bad Bunny's performance stays absolutely mad as hell because we know he'll put out a great show for us. On the topic of ICE, we've got, unfortunately, more disturbing and horrifying developments to discuss. ICE just conducted a massive raid on an apartment building in Chicago, arresting 37 men, women, and children. The more details that I learn about this raid, the worse that it honestly gets. Many of these people were zip-tied, in some cases naked, for hours. ICE even detained citizens for hours, ignoring their requests for lawyers, for warrants, for any semblance of due process. I can't even imagine the trauma seeing your parent zip-tied and held for hours, being ripped out of your bed. And I just wonder, what is it going to take for enough to be enough for people to really come together and fight back and stand up? And, that applies to the Democrats in office who are supposed to be the resistance against this. But the more stories that come out about these raids, we are terrorizing communities, we are terrorizing families, we are terrorizing children, and all for what? To funnel billions of dollars into the prison industrial deportation complex. It's disgusting. And even worse, a few weeks ago, the Supreme Court ruled that ICE can racially profile people based off their skin color, which, is really no surprise for many people. This is what they've been doing. This is what cops have done since the inception of policing in the United States. But to have it really institutionalized by the Supreme Court in that way, I think marks a shift, and we're seeing that already. On a similar topic, Trump recently addressed leaders of the United States military, promising to unleash the military on U.S. cities and threatening a bunch of really terrifying shit. Some of them are a little more lighthearted and ridiculous because this man says absolutely the craziest shit that I've ever heard come out of anyone's mouth. And some of them are not so thinly veiled threats to the people of the United States. Trump starts off by threatening multiple major U.S. cities, manufacturing crises in cities where, by most accounts, crime has gone down in the last few years thanks to community-centered efforts. He threatens San Francisco and Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. We'll straighten them out one by one. It will be a major part for some of the people in this room. It's a war, too. It's a war from within. Sounds like inciting political violence to me. Trump says, I told Pete we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military. National Guard, but our military, because we're going into Chicago very soon. That's a big city with an incompetent governor. Stupid governor. Chicago is run by Mayor Brandon Johnson and has actually seen historic drops in crime rates due to investments in things like opening mental health centers and summer jobs for young people. Trump is literally making shit up as an excuse to unleash our military on a city that is inhabited by primarily black and brown people, and he is not being quiet about it. He says, last month, I signed an executive order to provide training for a quick reaction force that can help quell civil disturbances. This is going to be a big thing for the people in this room because it's the enemy from within, and we have to handle it before it gets out of control. Now, I think the important thing to note here is Trump is using examples of these particular cities, citing crime rates and whatever the fuck. But if you look at them, cities like Chicago, which, Mayor Brandon Johnson has implemented policies like, investing in mental health centers and summer jobs for young people. And those have had significant impacts. Crime is down by historic levels. But what Trump is really trying to do is manufacture a crisis and create fear and normalize this turning of the military in our neighborhoods, in our communities, against Americans. And that is completely unacceptable, no matter where he wants to do it. The end game is that we are so used to this that we don't, bat an eyelid when he targets people who disagree with him with the military. And, that's not a stretch to say that that's what's coming. This is the last thing we need. And now, because I need a little bit of a laugh, let's go over some of the funny things that he said, because unfortunately, the dictator in office does say some hilarious things. He said, I'm very careful when I walk downstairs. Like I'm on stairs, I walk very slowly. Nobody has to set a record. Just try not to fall because it doesn't work out well. Personally, I wouldn't mind seeing Trump fall. It's so funny that Trump has to focus so carefully on walking without falling. Personally, I think it's really funny to imagine how hard Trump must have to focus to not fall while he's walking. He's like left, right, down. He's literally probably never had to focus so hard on anything other than not saying creepy things about his daughter Ivanka. Trump also says, "We're the hottest country in the world right now." Putin said that to me. Well, whatever Daddy Putin says goes, but maybe it's because something to do with pulling out of the Paris climate agreements, just a thought, or letting the fossil fuel industry run absolutely wild. Trump also says, randomly, again, this is all just spliced in between him threatening to unleash the military on the United States of America and its citizens. He goes, "I'm a very aesthetic person. I don't like some of the ships you are doing aesthetically. They say it is stealth. That's not stealth. An ugly ship is not necessary in order to say you are stealth." So I guess next year we can expect gold-plated warships to come out of the Trump administration. Again, priorities. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth says, "It all starts with physical fitness and appearance." Guys, they're cooked. "If the Secretary of War can do regular hard PT, so can every member of our joint force. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals." Not the fat troops, guys. I don't think that, I'm skeptical that Pete Hegseth could do a full body pull-up, so I don't know where he gets off talking shit about our fat troops. This is not a problem. As far as all the problems that we have with the United States military, I don't think their physical health and fitness is the one that I'm most concerned about. It's probably like them bombing and killing civilians in other countries, or possibly in our country. That's what I'm most concerned about. And for anyone who doesn't remember, Pete Hegseth used to be a Fox News anchor. So apparently the only qualifications you need to get up in front of the United States military and tell them they're all fat is to be a Fox News host for several years. If anybody's looking for a job. Somebody find Carrie Lake. Actually, please don't. We don't really ever want to hear from her again. I may have buried the lead a little bit, but we are in a government shutdown right now, in case anybody didn't know. Trump and Republicans have shut down the government because they are so determined to give their dear, darling, precious, greedy fucking billionaires another tax break that they have shut us down because they want to also, at the same time, double health insurance premiums for millions of Americans in order to pay for that tax break. Right now, Democrats are saying that if Republicans want their support to pass the budget, then that budget better be protecting Americans and their health care. And I say that they absolutely need to continue and hold the line. We do not need them to roll over like they did last time. No protections for Americans' health care, no deal. Like, the government is shut down, but have you looked around? ICE is military. Our neighborhoods are being militarized. ICE is ripping apart families. Meanwhile, our cost of living are skyrocketing. Healthcare is going up. Our schools are underfunded. Yet we still have money for ICE and for Israel. So, yeah, I say it's time to put a hard line in the sand, and Democrats really need to remember that this is what the American people want from them. We want them to actually fight back, to actually resist Trump. We do not need them to do performative gestures or sound bites. We need them to actually fucking fight for the people who are being held hostage by Trump and his dictatorship. And really quickly, I have to unfortunately talk about the Tylenol of it all. Last week, the Trump administration under RFK Jr. has recommended that women who are pregnant do not use Tylenol, as they say it will lead to autism in their children. This is absolute bullshit, and it is ableist, it is eugenics, it is misogyny, frankly. Tylenol is the only approved pain reliever during pregnancy, and this is no surprise that the Trump administration is saying, fuck you women and fuck you pregnant women. But basically they think, don't use Tylenol while you're pregnant. And if you do, and your kid ends up autistic, it's your fault and we'll blame you. But once again, there is absolutely no evidence backing this. And, the insinuation that there is somehow something wrong with autistic children or people in general is so offensive and so incredibly wrong. Autistic people are wonderful. And you know what? If we had more autistic people in the US, we would probably have amazing public transit and high-speed trains. Like, autistic people are a benefit to our society. They're not something that we should be trying to get rid of. And the Trump administration's comments and policies around this are absolutely abhorrent. Is yet another reminder that the Make America Healthy Again movement is not about making America healthy. They are playing on our broken healthcare system and the valid frustrations that people feel and using it to give completely not based in science medical advice, and using it to line the pockets of people like Dr. Oz who are peddling bullshit supplements. It's not about our health. It's about profit, just like every other fucking thing we talk about. The result of this puts more hatred and discrimination towards autistic and neurodivergent people and actually threatens the lives of pregnant women. In other news, Jane Goodall died. I wish that we lived in a country where that was the kind of person where we raised the flag to half-mast for. Unfortunately, we live in the United States and we lower the flag for Charlie Kirk, who at this point everybody knows he's a white supremacist podcaster and political activist who was killed in a shooting at a Utah college earlier in September. And I just have a few quick reactions on that, as it was a few weeks ago, but still relevant. I think, if anything, that situation really highlights whose lives we place value on in the United States. And by we, I mean, start that over. I think it really highlights very clearly whose lives we place value on in the United States. You would have thought that, we had basically a national month of mourning for Charlie Kirk, who made millions of dollars spreading white supremacist propaganda, spreading racism, spreading violence, literally making excuses for the fact that children die in school shootings each year. Meanwhile, that same week, multiple school children were shot in Colorado. Basically not a peep about that on the news. Black men in the South, such as Trey Reed, are being lynched. Palestinian children are being murdered every single day. And yet, it almost seemed like we were going to be forced to be making government-mandated or employer-mandated Charlie Kirk memorial posts. As the founder of Turning Point USA, which is an organization based in Arizona, there was a massive memorial service held for him here at the State Farm Stadium, in which his wife, Erica Kirk, timed her crying to the music, sold Nazi merch, had a super creepy moment with Trump, and announced that she would be taking over for Charlie Kirk at his organization as the CEO, which is extremely ironic given how much time the both of them have spent telling women that their number one job is to find a husband and make babies and satisfy the right's disgusting breeding kink. She's apparently more radical than Charlie Kirk, which that's terrifying, honestly. And I thought it was really interesting how happy to forgive the shooter of her husband she was once, and she and the rest of the right were, once they realized that it was a white cis guy from a conservative family. Shocking, I know. There used to be data on this, actually, showing that the far right are most responsible for political violence in the United States, but that is a report that the Trump administration conveniently wiped from records. Some of the other fallout that came from the Charlie Kirk shooting was that Jimmy Kimmel was temporarily removed from the air over, frankly, some very mild comments about the shooting. Trump used his power of government to pressure the FCC to then pressure the media companies to take Kimmel's show off the air. This resulted in massive boycotts, which was really great to see. And at the end of the day, they did end up returning Kimmel's show to air. But I just want to make this point that, freedom of speech is something that we should all be concerned about. To my earlier point about, whose lives have value and who doesn't, we had all this outcry about Jimmy Kimmel. But a good reminder is that Mahmoud Khalil was recently deported for protesting against the genocide in Gaza, which is similarly a free speech issue. And so we cannot wait till it is rich white men like Jimmy Kimmel having their shows pulled off the air before we give a shit about attacks on free speech that are happening every day in this country. And you know what Kimmel did as soon as he got back on the air? He thanked Trump for the ratings. Like, these people are in it for profit at the end of the day. These media companies are in it for profit. So withhold your dollars. Don't restart that subscription. If they show that they're willing to roll over for Trump even a little bit, they don't deserve your money. One update out of Gaza is that the Israeli forces, which have so bravely and courageously spent the last several years murdering women and babies, have intercepted the flotilla, which was carrying humanitarian aid and several hundred passengers from various countries to deliver things like baby food and formula to the people who are being starved by Israel and backed by the U.S. While these boats were intercepted and people are being arrested and detained, one boat actually breached the blockade, which just really proves that unarmed civilians can do what so many governments are currently refusing to do. This is such an inspiring act of civil disobedience, and I really, really hope that it starts to change the tide in how other nations across the world see their role in ending this genocide. Free Palestine, as always.